I want to thank the Nelk boys, Eden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bussin' with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan, the UFC CEO Dana White, when handed the microphone during Donald Trump's victory speech on election night. Rather than shout out a slew of Republican senators, White singled out a handful of popular podcasts and influencers who arguably had more to do with Trump taking the stage at about 2:30 a.m. than your run-of-the-mill politician in Washington. White's remarks spoke to the Trump's campaign-savvy media strategy courting large male audiences and was a harbinger of the Democrats' needed Joe Rogan discourse that has followed the party's resounding defeat. In conversations I've had since prominent voices on the right and the left, as well with journalists steeped in internet culture, it's clear that Democrats need to engage more effectively through non-traditional media. And while there are opportunities for the party to connect, there's also no quick fix to match a right-leaning male-centric media ecosystem or manosphere that's growing with the MAGA megaphone. The shift has been happening for literal years, says Taylor Lorenz, a tech journalist and the author of the book Extremely Online. You can look at the evolution of something like Barstool Sports, which is part of this as well. The right has always succeeded in personality-driven environments. They recognized back in the 90s, in the days of talk radio, that personality-driven media is just far more effective at reaching people and promoting their message. She also points to the sports, gaming, and YouTube prank culture as subtle ways that young people were gradually exposed to increasingly conservative ideology. Lorenz, who produces an online culture publication on Substack, User Mag, says that the content space leans right because the people who created the environment have always felt shut out from traditional media channels, Hollywood and mainstream pop culture, which they feel is controlled by liberals. In the final stretch of the 2024 election, Trump appeared on numerous podcasts and live streams, including the Joe Rogan Experience this past weekend with Theo Vaughn, Full Send, and more, while stiff-arming the mainstream media. J.D. Vance also appeared on Rogan's show, as did Elon Musk. Trump's 18-year-old son, Barron, has been credited with encouraging such appearances, which allowed the president-elect to reach a younger demographic in a more conversational and even meandering manner, a far cry from policy-driven Sunday show interview. As a result, conservative host Candace Owens tells me the public was able to access a different side of Trump, and that's what people want to see. Owens claims that 90% of mainstream media is basically dismissing the people on the right. They communicate in that way with piety and arrogance, and people are just tired of it, she adds, arguing that the right is winning the independent media space because they foster more human conversations. Don Lemon, a former CNN anchor who's drawn praise for his man on the street videos around the country this election cycle, tells me that Trump has realized smartly the impact that streaming, digital, and social can have on a very much waning traditional corporate old school media. Meanwhile, Harris's campaign, he says, really missed out on that. She's a much more vibrant young person than Trump, Lemon argues. She's not sourpuss. She's not a sourpuss, and those people wanted to embrace her, specifically referencing black independent media. There's so many places, sort of center-left people who are just not in that crazy right-wing white boy bro space that she could have gone on to. Lamont suggests that Harris's campaign was simply too cautious, concerned by which podcast host could cause unwanted controversy, when they could have been tapping into the online ecosystem. The rules are different, he says, noting that shouldn't have been a concern for Democrats when Trump surrounded himself with people who spout off on a daily basis conspiracy theories and far-right talking points. One voice on the left who has achieved similar success in audience growth, according to Lorenz, is Hassan Piker, a streamer, influencer, and political talker who provides an alternative to hyper-masculine Trump boosters while remaining culturally relevant. On election night, Piker was the only left-leaning streamer to rank top 10 on Rumble, a YouTube competitor backed by Peter Thiel. So this part is wrong, and I hope they fix that, because I'm not a Rumble streamer. Anyway, in the rankings, Piker at number 3 is flanked by conservative talkers like Dan Bongino, Steven Crowder, Patrick Bet David podcast, which featured Owens, Charlie Kirk, and Tucker Carlson. Piker in an interview identifies different strands of commentary on the right, from the more explicitly political propaganda outlets like The Daily Wire to the centrist content circuit, pointing to podcasts Trump has appeared on like Vaughn's this past weekend. Vaughn is not an overt right-winger, he says, adding that Rogan falls somewhere in between there, but has recently become this right-wing guy who went from endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2020 to endorsing Donald Trump in 2024. Notably, Sanders appeared on Rogan's show during the 2020 Democratic primary campaign and seemingly won over the support of the host, which led to criticism from some on the left, given Rogan's controversial comments, including regarding transgender athletes. On Sunday, Sanders recalled being vilified for going on Rogan's show while urging the Democrats to not ignore the alternative media out there. The backlash against Sanders' appearance 4 years ago helped to further exile this burgeoning online content space from the Democratic Party. Piker tells me that he feels as though economic populism on the left is in line with Sanders' platform has been shunned by the party establishment, causing the left-leaning media ecosystem to be stunted while right-wing content exploded, flooding the zone. When you actively run away from that sort of messaging because you're worried about the donor support diminishing or something, well then yeah, you're going to have a very hard time developing a network of content creators that have organically created a following, he says. Piker's success stems from the wide range of his content, from video game streaming. He played Among Us on live stream in 2020 with the Progressive Democratic Representatives AOC and Ilhan Omar, to collaborations with other creators, to political and news content. They are building culture shows. They're not building political shows, Lauren says. It is subtly political. It's just not like shoving it down your throat, and you're not even aware that you're consuming it, she adds. And Piker stresses that Rogan did not become a right-wing operative because they gave him money. He got there organically. Piker, however, worries that the lesson Democrats will take from this election is that they need 10 to 15 Pod Save Americas out there. While Piker has appeared on Pod Save America, and he says he respects the work that they do, he argues, we need something that goes beyond that truly reflects the values of a lot of people within the base, and isn't inherently connected to the Democratic Party institution. Pod Save America is hosted by former Obama staffers and veteran Democratic operatives John Favreau, John Lovett, Dan Pfeiffer, and Tommy Vitor. Vitor, for one, has argued in recent days that the Democratic Party's media problem isn't simply that it lacks its own Joe Rogan, but that Republicans have invested tons of money and time into building a right-wing media ecosystem, while his party treats progressive outlets as an afterthought. This part is true. I agree with Vitor on this. Notably, Vitor pointed out both President Joe Biden and Harris Walt's campaigns snubbed the podcast in 2024. While Trump continues to elevate right-leaning independent media through engaging with it, Piker says, there is no such back and forth relationship on the left, as Democrats flock to the more insular mainstream media. Without a direct line of communication to the base, the streamer argues, Democrats will continue to lag behind their opponents in the online world. I got a normie-ass brother, plays COD, watches multiple sports, and sometimes tunes into politics. He says he's willing to hear out Kamala when she was talking about going after price gouging, but then tuned all that shit out when she aligned herself with Biden. I feel like that shit is such a major blow in her campaign. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand that there is, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I've been saying that there's like different tiers of right-wing content. You have the center to center-right commentary that is not immediately political, right? Even though it features a lot of right-wing sentiment in it, right? People who complain constantly about like DEI and video games and whatnot, those guys aren't like political operatives in the same way that Daily Wire is, right? They're not. They're just not. But there's cross-pollination between this massive circuit of content creators. And that pipeline directly goes all the way to fucking Fox News, because there is no value divergence between Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire, who is a right-wing operative, who is a political content creator specifically, right? And someone at Fox News. And as a matter of fact, Ben Shapiro will routinely appear on Fox News. There is a consistent legitimization of independent right-wing media and you know, mainstream right-wing media at Fox News. So when those guys then become a prominent fixture in the center, or rather, quote unquote, apolitical, but socially somewhat conservative media circuit online, right, in independent media and podcasts and whatnot, they are presented as a solid alternative to mainstream media while still repping mainstream media positions, like mainstream right-wing positions. There is no such equivalent on the left. It does not exist. There is no media ecosystem that will have someone like myself on fucking CNN or MSNBC on a regular basis and offer me legitimacy and say, this is our guy, we agree with his opinions. Just like my opinions in MSNBC or CNN or ABC, CBS, like their perspective on the world is almost diametrically opposed to one another. Whereas Fox News' perspective and the things that they say on Fox News are damn near identical to the things that Ben Shapiro says, are damn near identical to the things that Charlie Kirk says. Okay? People misunderstand. You cannot take the role of this on the left. The point is, it's mostly organic. Exactly. Like, I am someone who has these positions and I have become successful individually. Okay. I did not become successful like Charlie Kirk, for example, who got uplifted by the right wing media ecosystem instantly. Charlie Kirk wrote a piece for his like high school or something, right? When he didn't get into when he wasn't able to get into his college of choice. I believe it was like Annapolis, if I'm not mistaken. He wrote an article about how, like, you know, a black person took his place. And then Breitbart posted that article. And then immediately after that, they literally fucking brought him on Fox News. He took that immediate boost of influence and legitimacy to right-wing, to major right-wing donors, Foster Freeze, specifically, who's dead now, and said, I want to start Turning Point USA. I want to start an organization that basically lobbies student body governments, both in high school and in college, because there's a lot of woke shit happening there. Okay? Now he straight up has direct access to Donald Trump. This was my Republican counterpart in 2016 when we were debating, okay? Or even before then. We would go on Politicon and we would debate one another. Back then, we were considered like the you know, he was the right-wing version, I was the leftist version, okay? And there was no way that I was ever going to meet Barack Obama in the way that Charlie Kirk was immediately brought into the Republican Party's operations in a direct fashion and got access to the likes of Donald Trump, who became president. So not only do I not play ball with the Democratic Party because I am at odds with a lot of the values that they espouse, okay? And that divergence exists within the base of the party and the actual party itself, which makes it harder to create like a reliable media ecosystem. Okay? But also, like, even if they were to try and create a similar thing and flood the market with like party loyalists, the top line messaging is at odds with the things that people want. Okay? Do you feel like the purity culture of the left makes it hard for organic personalities to take root? You've said it yourself how much easier it'd be to be a conservative commentator because you've been canceled how many times before? Yeah, but cancellations are not fucking real. That's the point. That's why I always tell people to ignore the noise, okay? Yes, the left is very fucking annoying, okay? They are. It is what it is, okay? You got to do what you got to do. A lot of people mistake like even their own consumption for, I don't know, some kind of like political moral position that they're engaging in. But it does not matter. That's why I have consistently for the past 6 years that I've been doing this on Twitch, openly told rad libs to shut the fuck up whenever they chirp about like, this person is committing a microaggression, or what you said, I misunderstood, and now I'm going to yell at you. Or, Hasan, why do you have right-wingers on your show? Or, Hasan, why do you go on a right-wing podcast? And it's like, I do that because I want my message to reach as broad an audience as possible. And if I were to listen to some of the biggest woke scolds in my community at the time, when I had 35 people watching or when I had 350 people watching, Okay. Ultimately, I would have just stayed there. And this would not be the largest pro-trans community online. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just got to not listen to your naysayers, even if you are ideologically aligned with them. That's it. That's it. That's why I regularly yell at people who, for example, deny people's capacity to change. Okay? I think it's silly. I think it's stupid. And I think we always have to be as charitable as we possibly can, especially if someone is on a journey of learning and changing their minds. Leftists understand that people are not born intrinsically bigoted. Okay? They're not. Bigotry is learned through social conditioning. So if you understand that we are products of a bigoted environment, then you have to be a little bit more understanding when people come in and are confused and are asking questions genuinely and want to learn. This is why I regularly will yell at people who chirp at me and others who are also on their own personal journey, who have been indoctrinated into believing right-wing shit. That's it. I think that is perhaps one of the biggest reasons why this community is so large. Okay? And there are plenty. For example, I use trans rights. Okay? I'm uncompromising when it comes to defending marginalized identities, including but not limited to trans people. And there have been many instances where trans people online have yelled at me for not being sufficiently pro-trans. If I were to listen to them, okay, and not do what I do regardless, then this would not be a fun space for every single person, including trans people, that was so large, okay? It just wouldn't. It's okay. Your allies who are directly from the marginalized groups that you speak on might not sometimes understand what your position is, but it does not matter. Okay? You just have to be open-minded to people. You have to be charitable. And you have to allow people to learn and put your best foot forward. And you have to always be uncompromising in your values, not the way you present yourself, okay? Just on your overall value system. That's it. How much charity have you done? Dude, I don't fucking know. A lot. Hassan, 0 pull, 0 clout, so no pay for play. I learned it from Hassan. Hassan is trans confirmed. How much charity you've done? A shit ton, but I don't even fucking know the extent of it. Let's be real. Anyway. Sabbath, do you think you might actually be the maximum possible outcome for a leftist media outlet given the inherent contradictions? No. Yeah, purity tests overall are stupid. A lot of people also personally, and this is something I've seen quite a bit, people write out others who are allies because they have disagreements on one issue or another. Okay? And that's very frustrating. People will come in here and be like, oh, well, what do you think about Majority Report saying this? Or FD Signifier said that. Or Chapo said this, yada, yada, yada. Mike from PA said that. I don't entertain it. And the reason for why I don't entertain it is because it's inherently unproductive to engage in infighting when the left holds no power whatsoever, which is another reason why I always say Look to who people present as their enemies. Okay? If someone claims to be progressive, but also simultaneously is, defending Israel's genocide, for example, or defending white people's right to say the N-word, and then spends a whole ordeal, spends a good bit of time, okay? Spends a good bit of time fighting left-wing content creators, and even often finds themselves directly aligning with the likes of Ben Shapiro even, or prominently features neo-Nazis that have fallen out of favor, okay, and offers them a lifeline for their careers, be very careful with how progressive they actually are. Okay? That's it. Your greatest on, but talking about coalition building and movement stuff between content creators is silly. What? Coalition building and movement stuff between content creators? That's not even what I'm talking about here. I'm just simply saying that, like, if my commentary is the only thing I have here, okay? If my commentary is the only thing I have at my disposal, is the only thing they have at their disposal, then yeah. If that's the only way to analyze someone and what their positions are, just look to who they have vilified. Look to who they have made their enemies. What is the incentive for the left to ever be platformed? Democratic Party is completely captured. Why would they ever concede to any kind of left-wing messaging that could hurt the donor base in the long run? The party is lost and cannot be captured internally. There has to be an electoral path outside the Democratic Party structure. We'll see. This is an opportunity. This is a moment for opportunity to change the Democratic Party's message, to change the structure of the Democratic Party, because they have incurred tremendous losses. Hi, when I was getting out of the alt-right pipeline in 2020, I was 16. I remember seeing your clips taken out of context and thinking you were crazy. Around 7-8 months ago, I've kept up with you on YouTube and found out how similar our ideals are. Keep up the good work. I'm glad that you offered me some charitability. Many people do not, and I don't even fault them for not doing that, but I'm glad that you did that. Does the SJW chirpers bother you more than right-wing chatters? No. Yes and no sometimes, but it doesn't matter. Okay. I hear you, man, but every single article I've seen is about leftists bricking the party and Latinos being sexist. I think the Democratic Party might be cooked. We'll see. If they do actually engage in that, what is this? Here's your take from a year ago on why men flock to the alt-right pipeline.
This is something that's happening, apparently. No, I think that there's a lot of people, men don't fall down the alt-right MRA pipeline because the left isn't doing good enough outreach. They choose to subscribe to fascist ideology because they have an investment in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and the liberation of other groups threatens that. That is absolutely correct, by the way. Two things can be true at once. If you think the attractiveness of the manosphere and the right isn't connected to a deep investment in patriarchy and white supremacy, then you are unserious. Yup. It's a sense of feeling embarrassed. Okay, by material conditions, and a sense.
God, my fucking look like shit, dude. Holy fuck.
Sense of nostalgia that you are desperately seeking, that you feel the manosphere gives you by building this, by basically building up this systemic criticism that is false, and telling you that you yourself are not the problem. The system is broken, and the system is actually at fault for your situation. It's escapist. It also does not offer good advice, but basically tries to reinforce previously established constructs as a way for you to feel like a little bit of power, especially over your interlocutors as you own them. It's silly. It's stupid. Nah, most 14-year-olds don't care about that. They just want to own the libs. No, even when we talk about like 14-year-olds, you're failing to understand what I mean. Like when I talk about material conditions and how it impacts people, I'm talking about how most people experience certain resentments, experience certain things, and then have a sense of resentment without actually adequately understanding where that resentment is coming from, or where that anger should be directed. But you still experience it.
I'm agreeing with myself from the past. What the fuck? What's wrong with me? I'm like, yeah, this guy's spitting.
Regardless, you know what I mean? Two things can be true at once. If you think the attractiveness of the manosphere and the right isn't connected, there's a deep investment in the patriarchy, in supremacy, white supremacy, you are unserious. The ignoring of this fact and the left isn't doing enough argument are hand in hand with a lack of self-reflection and accountability for the predominantly white male adherents of this ideology and the inherent anti-black self-hating elements of the black manosphere. Jordan Peterson and Kevin Samuels works for a lot of these boys because they present a strong man authoritarian image. Even the most masculine leftist men are not going to offer the same product because authoritarianism is inherently conservative. I constantly have men in my comments say something along the lines of, I love your content and you have great ideas, but I just wish you were more misogynistic. Obviously, by the way, they're not saying that with those words, but that is an understandable thing to derive from that content. Those are also really easy points to latch on to. They're easy. They're stereotypes that exist for a reason, and you can just like very easily point to them and go, hey, isn't that funny? You know, women go to the kitchen, lol, and people who are dumb will also run with it because it's something that they've heard, and it feels a little, it feels a little dangerous to be able to, joke around about that, especially in an environment where you feel like you are suppressed. You can't say things like that when you, of course, can, and many people do. And not only that, but like there are basically systemic hurdles presented towards women that are almost identical to that, right? Like undermining civil liberties. Abortion rights is a great example of this. You know what I mean? Pink tax, shit like that. Things that you don't have to really think about as a man. It's not a matter of effort. It's the fact that we live in a white supremacist patriarchy, and we have a lot of conservative centrists and even some so-called leftists who say they care about helping men and boys, but also want to somehow maintain these hierarchies. That's Jordan Peterson's great trick. He cares about men and boys, but he cares about patriarchy and white supremacy more, necessitating his constant attacks on critical theories that would dismantle those systems. That's why I can't get the average dude to agree with any and every major feminist tenet around gender and sex, as long as I don't call it. I can get the average dude to agree with every major feminist tenet, as long as I don't call it feminism, because then they're chip triggers and they turn into Sneeko or some shit. And yay, is still algorithmically controlled and optimized. But that doesn't mean it's caused by algorithms, just exacerbated by it. Yep, that's true. When I was 14 and falling down the pipeline, misogynistic jokes were like comfort food. It comes from a place of being deeply rooted in a conservative past and refusing to let go or see other perspectives, refusing to have empathy.
This is why I always have stated that economic volatility, instability, and not having a future that your parents had for yourself, okay? Not having the same future that your parents had for yourself, that causes a lot of fear, and it makes people even more vulnerable. Okay? And that environment is perfect for right-wing reactionaries. Okay? It is perfect for right-wing reactionaries. They see how vulnerable and insecure people are. They themselves also are kind of insecure. And they basically present themselves like these, macho, masculine men. And the only way they can consistently reinforce the idea that they're macho and masculine is by fucking pushing women down. Pushing marginalized communities down by being like, yeah, that's how you become a real man, by fucking shitting on women. That's how you become a real man, by shitting on trans people. Like, no. Real men are not bullies, okay? Real manly men in movies or in popular literature are not fucking going around shitting on those who have less than them. That's what a weak man does. That's not what a strong man does. And when I say man, it doesn't matter. It's men, women, everyone. Like, a strong person does not hurt those who have less than they do. Okay? It's insecurity through and through. And as people become more and more insecure, as we are alienated, we're isolated, and the only sense of community we can get is online, okay? These awful echo chambers basically reinforce the most insecure desires that people have, okay? What is this? A strong man stands up for himself. A stronger man stands up for others. The trans cow dad from Barnyard. I don't even know what that is, but yeah. You don't know Barnyard, lol? Yeah, I don't know. Advice on what to say to my little brothers who I'm concerned could fall into this pipeline. You have to help them build confidence, okay? That is the most important thing, I think, for young men. If we're gonna talk about immaterial things, then there is a real crisis of confidence among young men. And the people that try, or the people that claim to save these people, are only furthering their insecurities. And instead of telling them that real change comes from within, and real change and real confidence comes from an endless desire to better yourself, okay, and be more empathetic to others around you, regardless of how shitty your circumstances are, a lot of people are not going to do that. It's a comfortable narrative to say society only cares about women, these elites. They only care about women and trans people and gay people. They don't care about you. Okay? And it's not about just telling men like, no, you're right. Society does only care about women and trans people, and they don't care about you. I promise. All of your insecurities are validated with me. That's not how you do it. Okay? Because that's false. I think the quickest way to stop this kind of stuff before it becomes like a massive consequential problem is identify it, recognize that it comes from it comes from a place of insecurity, and try to help people overcome that at the individual level. Anyway, it'll happen. It's going to happen, especially under the Trump administration, just like it did last time. Trump became president with a similar coalition of young men. Okay. And it has increasingly gotten more diverse, his base of support. But having said that, there was plenty of young men who were out there being like, oh, yeah, I vibe with Trump. And then what happened? Donald Trump became president, and all of the promises that he made about, like, I don't know, deporting the undocumented migrants and doing child separation policies, like, did that make young men's lives better? No. Some of you that are prominent members of this community were probably captivated by this message. Maybe not directly the Trump message, but at least a Trumpian message that you were getting from fucking alt-right YouTubers, right? And what happened? You realized that Trump became president, and the power, the people in positions of power, they changed their party, but your situation, your circumstances did not improve. Okay? They didn't, because owning the libs Okay, a policy of revenge, petty revenge, is not going to put food on your table. It's not going to put money in your pockets. It's not going to make your living circumstances better. That's it. It's just not changing anything. It's immaterial. It is simply a distraction. Okay? This is what I try to explain to people all the time. Pure spite-driven politics will get you nowhere. And both parties and their most prominent members in the base do spite-driven politics. Okay? You have to have firm commitments. You have to have convictions. Sure, owning the cons is fun. That's why we do Hogwatch, okay? To expose how silly or how stupid some Republicans might be. But at the end of the day, I still want them to have health care. I still want them to have a meaningful life. I still want them to have a comfortable existence, to have some semblance of autonomy in their lives unconditionally. Okay? Unconditionally. Regardless of my anger and frustration for the dumb, nonsensical bullshit that they might be presenting in that very moment, I still want them to have a better life. They deserve a better life, regardless of their positions, regardless of the cruelty that they have signed off on. Okay? It's very important. Because in that process, when people go on that journey of independently developing themselves, and as material conditions improve, you eliminate these vectors of hate. You eliminate an environment, the underlying environment that causes people to seek out different answers. Okay? That's it. Do you believe that right-wing pundits deserve the same kind of unconditional faith that they will change? Not really, because they have a job. They're doing that for the bag, ultimately. So it makes it very difficult for them to truly organically change their perspective, because their bag-making capabilities come from them constantly being more and more right-wing, pushing the fucking needle. I respect it when a content creator does organically come to different conclusions, and I will always defend them. Okay? But in the interim process, as long as they're fucking churning nonsensical right-wing propaganda that is filled to the brim with hate with the express purpose of making money and also making more people right-wing, I'm always going to fucking have smoke for them. Okay? As someone who has been a conservative for most of their life until 20 years old, it's the difference between people like you and people who hate on everyone in the South simply existing in those conditions that actually moves people to the left. Yeah. What? What is this? Stop having arguments in the chat. Trump is on track for a smaller popular victory vote than Hillary Clinton in 2016. Democrats have work to do. They need to build a coalition that's not always 2 points from losing to MAGA. But I don't see Republicans internalizing that this was a narrow victory in a historically anti-incumbent year. Many presidencies have faltered by misreading an anti-incumbent mood as a sweeping ideological mandate. Yuval Levin makes the same point more eloquently. This is the trap of our 21st century presidents have tended to fall into. They win elections because their opponents were unpopular, and then imagining the public has endorsed their party's activist agenda, they use the power of their office to make themselves unpopular. This is why the public moved left on key issues during Trump's first term and right during Biden's. I don't agree with that. I think it's a very centrist position because it's not like Biden, who ran on the fucking public option as a way to destroy Bernie's Medicare for all, actually followed through on that. Okay? Wide sweeping systemic changes did not occur under the Biden leadership. Yes, the Biden administration was significantly more anti-corporate in its regulatory agencies and the way that they operated, and that was great. Having said that, however, if the environment demands wide sweeping changes and you're only offering like a little bit of that, and you're not also promoting the things that you have done in the process, yeah, people are not going to recognize it. But yeah, Meta's thread is overrun with liberal election fraud conspiracies. We did some LibWatch earlier. That shit was crazy. Congress is voting on H.R. 9495 tomorrow, says Hasanabi, which would see a devastating eradication and criminalization of Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, pro-Palestine nonprofit groups. See my thread below for more historical context. So this is a bipartisan bill from September 10th in the House Ways and Means Committee discussing H.R. 9495, a bipartisan bill which includes provisions threatening to revoke the tax-exempt status of any nonprofit the government deems a terrorist-supporting organization, a new legal category. The current version, which was introduced by Representative Claudia Tenney and co-sponsored by Brad Schneider and Dinah Titus, is paired with a provision that would provide tax relief to American hostages held by terror groups and other Americans unjustly imprisoned abroad. Hamadanchi said combining the two provisions was likely a ploy to push the nonprofit terror bill through with as little opposition as possible. The law would not require officials to explain the reason for designating a group, nor does it require the Treasury Department to provide evidence. So you can just turn around and say this is a terrorist group and revoke their 501c3 status. Devastating. And also, and as Ryan Grimm correctly points out, for the record, straight out of Project Tester, which is the Project 2025 McCarthyist version of anti-Palestinian protests, anti-Israeli protesters getting hit with a RICO charge. Last time I've heard anti-Semitism was my uncle saying that Jews control the media, and at the time I did not even know how to respond to that, and even thought that it could be true, but thanks to your broadcast, I've learned how to counter that message. Such awful speech and dunk on people spreading misinformation. Thank you. Hell yeah. Once again, that's exactly why I do what I do. This is straight out of Project Esther, which Drop Site News covered. It's extremely fucking dangerous. And in the lame duck session, the Democratic Party is going to push for it. Remembering how back in 2020 primary, when it looked like Bernie would win, CNN panicked and started booking me and a few other Bernie lefties semi-regularly. Then Clyburn made his move. Biden won South Carolina. The other candidates dropped out to make way for Biden. And I haven't seen the inside of a CNN green room since. Funny to think about now that I see a few people on CNN and MSNBC maybe admitting that Bernie had a point. These networks have always had room for never-Trumpers who basically only exist on cable news, and even actual Trumpers, but almost completely shut out the populist left. Somehow their commitment to a diversity of viewpoints conveniently excludes the one ideology that threatens capital's bottom line. That's true, but I think the first part of that is more important. And that's why I always say there is a method out there, and there is a way to actually bully the Democratic Party and the media institutions into submission to do the right thing. Okay? Because when they noticed that Bernie had broad momentum and was very popular, they responded by not ultimately suppressing it, even though they did do that, right? But they were like, okay, let's hear him out. That's why I say if there was like a Trumpian style economic leftist figure within the Democratic Party that like somehow snuck in, okay, these outlets that run on blue no matter who narratives, some of them would actually go along with it. And the donor class, depending on, maybe I'm too fucking crazy for this, and this is my most idealistic position. This is my most anti-materialist position, and I recognize it. But I think that what Donald Trump was capable of doing to the Republican Party, someone could do to the Democratic Party as well, by just openly saying, no, this is what we have to do. We have to start winning again, okay? Do you want us, or do you want these fucking psychopathic fascists who are going to create too much instability for you to make money? Yes, you might take a hit in your bottom line in the short term, but this country will benefit from it tremendously. A big reason they do that is fear of losing center-right people to Fox. I wish there was a mainstream progressive outlet. Yeah. I don't know who the vessel for that would be, but FDR was able to do it successfully at a time when, you know, I would say that the economic inequality and the power that billionaires had, or millionaires at the time, was, you know, identical to the standards of today. Sometimes you need a bold leader. Yeah.
Senator Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders' vision is so popular that even Asmongold's community likes him. As a Republican, I always said Bernie stood on business. He was the Democratic Party's best shot, but rather they shot themselves in the foot. The sad thing is that no one listened to Bernie, not even in his own party. This is exactly why he left the Democratic Party, for those who don't know. Dude is older than Biden, but is 1,000 times more coherent than Biden. Like Asmongold's entire community. This has 1.6 million views in 23 hours.